That's a fortress. It's older than Jesus himself. It was built by the Greeks 2,200 years ago. It's like 2 centuries before Christ. And we were conquered by Alexander the Great, obviously. Everybody conquered this land. And later on, his descendants basically built that fortress. That fortress was speaking to another fortresses on the Jordanian side. It was something. But the thing is, at the time of Jesus, it was abandoned. So when Christ was fasting on the mountain, by the way, in the Bible, it doesn't say where Christ was fasting. It just says the wilderness. If you read the book of Matthew, it says, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. Such information to like specify locations, it doesn't add up to the story. It's always about the essence. They were not trying to sell something, like this is the thing. But the thing is, that fortress was taken by the Jewish Hashmoneans. In the 1st century BC, the Jewish people, they revolted against the Greeks because they desecrated the temple in Jerusalem. Later on, they took over that fortress, and since then, basically, no longer Greeks. If you look at the opposite side, you see that long post? That's an Israeli military point. They go by helicopters to it. There is no pass, there is no roads up on the mountain, which is something. But anyway, when we look at the mountain of temptation, that is natural. Because once we deflect our eyes and we look at the old city here, what we are seeing, what we are standing over, nothing is natural here. This is all man-made. This place is what we call it archaeologically a man-made mound. What it means, an artificial mountain that was formed by the construction of so many cities built on top of each other. To speak of it, I'm gonna come to it. But first, can you guess what is this down here? This is 10,000 years old down here. This goes back to the old city. It's so hard to guess what it is because it's down there.
Water cistern?
Oh no.
A wall?
It's part of the wall. It's actually a tower. And it's the full piece. It's not missing anything. This is the whole piece. Now the normal question when you say this is the full piece, like why we're up here? When you speak of a tower, somebody should be up on the tower looking over the city, watching over it. And well, actually the old city, the 10,000 years old city, it's beneath us. It's down there. It's not on our elevation basically. But the way that this whole thing was formed, I'm gonna speak of it. But I think for the question about the tower, the proper question should be why it survived from the old city. This is the only piece that's still standing. Those Stone Age people, when they built this tower, they built it to counter floods and earthquakes. Floods and earthquakes, big things for us here. Now, every 100 years, we expect a new earthquake that will destroy a lot and it will kill a lot of people. By the way, it has been more than 100 years since the last one, so we're still expecting one. And every time that they had earthquakes, this is why they built this tower so heavy, just to that the earthquakes could not shake it. But secondly, it was built to counter the floods. Floods in the desert is very dangerous. Despite it doesn't rain that much, but rains, even a small rain comes down, you can surface like the mountain of temptation.
Watch it down
comes down, the water does not get absorbed. So it comes down, keeps rolling, destroys everything. And they were afraid also for the Elisha spray. Called spring of the city before it was called Elisha spray. So many floods happened. For those two reasons, this tower was so strong, by the way. This is the entrance, that's the exit. There are 22 steps inside it, and it's all stones all around. It's so heavy. It fits a guy my size, and that's it. And for a few facts about this tower, first of all, how did we date it? In archaeology, we cannot date stones. Stones go back to millions and billions of years. The way that we knew that this is 10,000 years old, we found inside it 9 decapitated heads, 9 skulls. And those skulls were plastered, like to preserve them from decomposing. Whoever was buried here, they mattered. The thing is, they found just heads. The bodies were not there. This is something with the culture of the pagans. They used to believe that the only way to set the soul free is by cutting the head after you die. Like they make sure that you will not come back. They must cut the head. Thing is, skulls, they are bones, and bones contain the element of carbon. And from the element of carbon, we knew that this is 10,000 years old. You know, the second interesting thing about this tower, so the archaeologists, they came here. They done the mathematics over the tower. They measured its height, and look at the shape of it, it's a round shape. And they measured it with the position of the sun. They figured out that this tower was working as a solar clock as well. So maybe here we just don't have the oldest tower, maybe the oldest clock as well. This is Stone Age. But right down there, this is how this was formed. So the tower here goes back to the first city. This is what we call in archaeology the first layer. So they built the first city. Then later on, that city was destroyed. God knows why. Maybe earthquakes, maybe floods, maybe even wars. But when it was destroyed, the only thing that survived was the tower. Later on, they built a second city over the debris and rubble of the destroyed one. So a second city we had. Later on, the second city got destroyed. The same reasons. God knows why. So they built a third city. Then the third one was destroyed. They built a fourth one, and so on and so on and so on, till we reach here. They found here 23 layers, as if we are speaking of 23 different cities built on top of each other. Now, when we speak of the Bible story, that it's believed to be with this site. Now, when we speak of the Bible story, we're speaking of the last city that was built on the site of the old city. We're speaking of the 23rd layer. Wow. That should be on the surface. It should not be down there. This was not probably with the story. It was not part of it. It was just buried. We're gonna see remains of that city over there, the one that has to do with the Bible. And we're gonna be saying goodbye to Stone Age to meet the Bronze Age. Let's see some Bronze Age then. You know, by the way, take a look around. This is all the old city. I'm gonna put it in context. You know, it's very old.
Amir, have to dispute when you said they found the heads.
Yeah.
I think the body of evidence was missing.
Yeah, I think so. You know, you can see the heads here on the poster, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you know, technology is a funny place. They even knew the genders of the skulls. They were more females than males. Apparently, the females mattered more.
They must have all been biologists.
Well, that's 3 females, 4, 5, 6. 6 females and 3 males they found.
It's amazing.
These are the skulls that they found here. And the age of them, the maximum was 40 years.
Wow.
You know, back then, if you're 40 years old, you're already old, on the verge of death, you know, like, he's an old guy. Well,